G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Up. Who says women can't make the manosphere about them? They finally found a way by calling it anti-feminism. Yes, the manosphere is misogyny. It's now mainstream. But of course, now they want to redefine it as anti-feminism because, it's always about us. But let's take a serious look at this for a second, right? Or two. So tune in, relax, and hopefully watch the entire video. Now, I've made some notes, so I'm going to be looking up a lot at my big screen. I need a new stand for my video, new stand for my screen so they can sit side by side. You know, I'm not a multi-million-dollar operation backed by the CIA, unlike Gloria Steinem, who admitted she was funded by the CIA. So yes, the feminist movement of the 60s was funded by the CIA. Who knew? What a shock. That's a video for another day, if I can gather enough information. But yes, of course, anti-feminism has historically always existed. Women did not want to be feminists. They wanted manly men. Right? They wanted the big, strong Viking, not little putts. The Vikings are coming. Okay, boys, go over the hill and wait for us, and we'll be down at the docks. But on a global scale, MGTOW is making improvements in many lives. Officially, 1/4 of the countries have reported now a backlash against gender equality and women's rights. In other words, the Korean, they called it last week it was the Korean crisis. Today it's a global crisis. Thank you, Korean men. Korean men have now political power. They're known as Generation 2030. And it's believed by 2030, the majority of young men will be actively political, active in politics, and many will be actively seeking elections with powerful backing of groups behind them. They are a major political force adopting many MGTOW tactics and are not political. They are amazing. And let's hope they continue to grow. Of course, Korean feminists have attacked me, and it turns out they're all based in the United States. So, don't tell me that all these big channels on YouTube are not funded by the CIA, and they're all organic. All their views are organic, right? That's why they have less than 10% of their subscribers at any one time. It's why their comment sections are so low. I get it. Mine too. My comments are low, but a big channel with over 1 million people and hardly any comments, that's not natural. And it's not natural for some big channel to punch down. Yeah. Just because I made a video. Right, so policy reversals. Yes. Not just the rise of anti-feminism, but it's reclaiming Christian spaces with Christian women backlash against the perception that all men are responsible for, the perception that all white men are based for all gender violence across the world. And many movements now, you have MGTOW, you have tradwives, although many feel that tradwives are just feminists avoiding the coming draft, as we've seen in Ukraine, women are being drafted now into the military, although that's been there's a backlash there against that. But whether you believe Matt Walsh or not, there is actually at least some following there to suggest that there are many different men's groups out there, not just MGTOW, that are making the UN panic and shit their boots. Because whether MGTOW becomes a majority or not is irrelevant. Anti-feminism and the whole umbrella is now outnumbering and outpolling feminists in 1/4 of the world. Japan, the anti-feminist backlash has seen the Japanese Prime Minister, who ironically is a woman, get elected. Right? But she ran on traditional values. Government shifts, not just Japan, Korea, the frontline organizations for women and women's services are losing funding. That's the real panic. Even in the UK. And it's not just political, it's economic shifts. People are giving up on feminism. Right? Remember, J.K. Rowling funded feminism. She's running out of money. She can't keep pumping money into avoiding taxes. You know, that's what it really is about, right? Peddling influence, right? It's a big money laundering operation. You really think J.K. Rowling, after 4 years of a book sitting languishing on the shelf, suddenly sold 1 million copies? I wish that would happen to me, but I doubt it would happen to me. But, you know, unless it happens to me, I will continue to believe, right, that J.K. Rowling is a manufactured entity, not an individual, but an entity, right? But women wonder why nobody likes them anymore. And it's not just the insufferable J.K. Rowling. Now, the role of the manosphere is driven by a decentralized digital ecosystem, right? It is an ecosystem of men's rights activists and an assortment of men who believe that they have the right to a political voice. And the UN is clutching their pearls and going, no, it's the future is feminism. As we're seeing with so many CEOs, right? How many businesses appointed a female CEO? And don't tell me Bob Iger is a man. He is Abigail Disney's sock puppet, right? He's a worm, okay? It's like Keir Starmer. Don't tell me Keir Starmer's a man. His balls are in his wife's purse. And of course, Mo's sad that little Keir Starmer is a failure, right? But the manosphere is rising. The establishment is panicking. Women cannot believe why. Right? Women are complaining about men being radicalized. Wait a minute. Who are the radicals? Women can't understand it. Men haven't changed. It's women, right? Now, we all know, right? I think I should do a video on this. Feminism was a shit test. And if it wasn't for weak men, women would have backed down, right? Got their rocks off, and a bunch of hard men would have gotten harder. But they didn't, right? The weak men gave in. And so the women got radicalized, right? The gender divide, the whole thing was just one big shit test. And people, particularly in the 60s, fell for it, right? They're weak, right? Because war does not decide who's right. It only decides who's left. And the good men were killed off by the weak men, sent to war to fight for glory of the president, the fascist dictator Roosevelt. But why are women so in love with the idea of killing babies? Right? Because they hate you so much for failing them. You failed to stop them. You failed to excite them. You failed to hold them down and make them feel embraced as a woman. You failed to obey them. You failed to disobey them. There is no pleasing a woman. Have you not figured out Rule 3 yet? Rule 1, women make all the rules. Rule 2, when men figure out the rules, you change them. Rule 3, never be satisfied. Never. So, it's crazy out there. Of course, the rules always change. That's why I don't write them down. But the generational divide and gender gap was created by younger women in the 60s breaking with older generations because they created World War II. Yet they go on to vote for the very party that created World War II, the left, right? But Gen Z's done the same back to them. Gen Z, men and women, 60% of Gen Z men believe that women's equality is about privileges. And 40% of Gen Z women hate feminism. They ruin their lives. They can't go 5 minutes without hearing about feminism. Ironically, more women tune into my anti-feminist rampages than rants or whatever you want to call them. Right? I call it political entertainment, but a lot of people do not seem to see. But right, a lot of people hate the baby boomers. Right? They see baby boomers and realise that the baby boomers now are only 43% of men and 30% of women. So wait. What? Yeah, but I thought women outlived men. Well, it turns out a lot of baby boomers, the women were were older. Remember, these were women in their 40s and 50s already. They're now in their 90s. Most of the baby boomer men, they were younger. They were their sons, right? You had this huge generational gap, right? Remember, a lot of the early baby boomers killed off in World War II. Well, were young in World War II, but they were killed off in Korea, Vietnam, and later. So those who are left, there aren't that many, but there's far left women left. Why? Because most of them were older women. So they're dying, they're all Jane Fonda's age. So, yeah, turns out, when men live longer, they live, fewer men, right? Not all men, right? The average for men is weird because the average for men is so spread out, whereas women, it's clustered. So you get men who live longer and you end up with more men living longer because women their average is higher, but the numbers who get that high are low, but the number of women who get to average is high. Fuck statistics, it's so, I know. Sorry. I probably tuned a lot of people out in that mad, twisted logic. But trust me, it makes sense that more men, right, that more boomers, because they were males at the tail end of boomers are alive, than feminist women, because they were at the beginning of the feminist movement. Right? I dug myself a grave. Let's move on. But that's why, right? You wonder why, right? Boomers wonder why they lost power. Well, they reduced their numbers, didn't they? They didn't produce enough. Boomers didn't produce enough Gen X. Gen X didn't produce enough Y. Y didn't produce enough millennials. And millennials, and ironically, most of your Gen Z and Alphas come from Gen X and Gen Y. So naturally, the shift, anti-boomer shift, and the anti-feminist shift are so aligned now because they see boomers and feminists as the same thing, right? But anti-feminism is not a new phenomenon. But every major wave of feminism has been followed. Now, in the 19th century, women opposed the entry into the labour force, they opposed unionisation, and they opposed jury duty. Because jury duty, all those things meant the draft. When governments in the late 1800s, right, the anti-suffragette movement, a lot of women believed at the time that women lacked the capacity of politics. I wonder where they got that idea from. Now, of course, the 60s and 70s saw a huge backlash and the beginning of men's rights, where women dominated society, right? 51% of the population were women. Sorry, 53. It's fallen to 51. It was about 53% of the population, and the majority of women shifted to voting Democrat, because Democrats were offering women not just rights, but privileges. You can murder your baby and we'll pay for up to $500. Yeah, they thought they were going to get cash. And in some cases, they did get cash for killing your baby. And as it turns out, those murdered babies were sold on the black market for profit. And organ harvesting. And stem cell research and all of it. So everything the Nazis did was wrong. But feminists do it anyway. So, is there any specific anti-feminist political group that interests you? Yeah, I am interested in the Korean movement, but most Koreans are reluctant to talk outside of their group, and I understand. Right now, their political base relies on their camaraderie and circle of trust. Right now, they do not have, they have a country that's been destabilized by China and North Korea. So they have a lot riding on their success. So, I can bring you, basically what you can find, I can find. There isn't anything new that I can add to it right now. But after decades of feminism, the global backlash is the biggest in history. 25% of the world's population is anti-feminist, according to the UN. And if the UN thinks it's that low, it must really be that high if they're panicking and shitting their pants. Because trust me, they don't want to lose Korea. They want their foothold on the Asian continent, right? Even when they don't control Korea, they sort of do. They have their foothold in South Korea, but really their playground is North Korea. You've a lot of people only hear about the Hermit Kingdom as an isolated country, but in reality, it's a billionaire's playground where there are private islands, private resorts on the coast. There are, huge tourism that come through Canada and Russia, sex tourism, labor export, big corporations in all throughout the Middle East hire en masse slaves, workers from North Korea, India and Pakistan, right? It's the largest human trafficking right now is oil rig workers in Africa, right? A lot of your projects in Africa are built by North Korean labor, right? These are all fueling men's rights movements, right? Men are slaves to other men, but these men are driven primarily into power by women, right? Offering women all these high-paid jobs, all these privileges, and women turn a blind eye to everything else, right? Even human trafficking. You look at the human traffic you look at the women defending the human traffickers and wanting to go after ICE, all right? Why does it bother them? Because they're immigrants, are their slaves, they're low-paid labor, they're fuck toys, right? Taking away their fuck toys, their gardeners, their drivers, their Uber Eats, how do you think, all the things that come, recently a video was done about how illegals, right, all throughout the food and entertainment industry, all the catering, or all the craft services, all the behind the scenes jobs, and they say, well, if you get rid of illegals, you lose all this, you lose all your restaurants, they have to close, all the movie productions have to shut down, and saying, so you're admitting that you're replacing American workers with illegals and paying them less, And then they're like, no, replacement's a conspiracy theory. Well, we're just using your own words. But, yeah, 21 abortions, right? Well, how about 22? And you do yourself. How about we call your mum and see if she wants one? So ask you, hey, mum, your daughter's had 21 abortions. Have you considered a late term? But I'm not racist. I hate liberal women more than anybody. I really do. Right? They are disgusting. Right? Your daddy should have... Yeah. Yeah, Jessica... Jessica on Fox. She's only there because people hate her and tune in to hate on her. But the backlash, right? You might think, well, Dave, Eddie, how's the UN panicking now? The backlash has been... Yeah, well, the backlash is... Well, definitely, they're panicking because Elon Musk is now allowing posts like this, uncensored and unfiltered. But this is what decades of indoctrination have produced, right? People who are thinking they're fighting the Nazis. Every generation, they're fighting the Nazis. No, they don't think anything through, love. They're totally emotional. They're retards, right? They're totally retarded. They're baby killers, yes. That's what you literally voted for, right? Birmingham is now one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Sweden went from being the safest country in Europe to the most dangerous country in Europe. All because of female majority. Feminists. How did they get there? Selective abortion. Baby killing. Right? And the UN is panicking. Why? Well, the UN wanted this global feminist collective, didn't they? And now, with the population of women in decline, particularly boomers, and the so-called wealth that they are passing on, well, particularly in Britain, and some American states, then they want to tax that wealth, so you're not going to inherit billions. J.K. Rowling is drying up like an old prune because the money flow has stopped there. Warner Brothers and their failed projects and failed to get funding, and now they're up for sale. It's believed that Harry Potter may revert back to Universal, where it should never have left. But dirty deeds done dirt cheap always seems to be the currency in Hollywood. And the UN, of course. But isn't it amazing that Harry Potter, the DCEU, the MCU, and all these big feminist projects all dry up the same time Trump cuts off foreign aid? Coincidence? I think not. But what do you think? Have I missed the manosphere? Because I'm not going to cover the pickup artists. They've always been pickup artists. I don't count the pickup artists as manosphere. They're grifters, and they are increasingly irrelevant, right? Andrew Tate is a paid propagandist, right? A paid propagandist, right? But there's also, what's the other one? You have, the trad movement. You have, I think the sport movement is a LARP, but who knows, right? They're Roman Empire recreationists, right? They're a men's group who all they do is talk about the glory of Rome. But apparently there's such large numbers, the UN considers them a manosphere threat, right? They're just LARPers, right? All they are is a group of men who recreate the Roman Empire for fun. But that's how insane it's gotten, right? But yeah, the UN talking about economic insecurity. Well, of course, they are going broke. They funded all these, they funded feminism, so did the CIA, the American, And of course, they funded all this mass migration, and that's falling apart. Saudi Arabia is going broke slowly, right? They're only losing something like 0.1% of a year or something. It's very not noticeable. But when China was not noticeable, nobody, it became a tidal wave. And 23 years later, the Chinese economy is on the verge of collapse. But it's been on the verge of collapse now for 3 years. I've done videos on this before. China won't collapse entirely. Countries don't go broke. They just cut back. You look at Greece, you look at Thailand. Right, Thailand's bounced back. You look at Poland, they're bounced back. You look at Japan, they're bouncing back. Yeah, Trump. This is why the UN's panicking, because you don't need them, right? Trump has proven you don't need the UN, and that's why the liberal establishment is panicking. Just like how Farage proved that Britain doesn't need the EU. Just like the British Empire, when countries realised they didn't need the British Empire anymore, yeah, it fell apart. It's all over again, right? Every empire is built on this artificial fear. And once the fear goes away, once the boomers go away, the empire of feminism goes away, because it's built on fear, right? Although we are looking at fifth wave feminism, but it's so crazy, right? So crazy. Look at fifth wave feminism. They're total genociders, right? They just want to kill all men, right? Have a women-only society. Goodbye one generation. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and please support the channel. Support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. All my links in the link tree, yada, yada, yada. Thank you for listening. See you in the next video, and bye for now.